For millennia, the pyramids of Egypt have towered over the desert sands like whispers from another world. They stood in silence, keeping their secrets, until 1799, when a French soldier stumbled upon a mysterious stone near Alexandria. T was the Rosetta Stone. Covered in 3 scripts, it would become the key to unlocking a language lost for thousands of years. And with it, an entire civilization would awaken. Egypt, as Herodotus said, is the gift of the Nile. Without this river, there would be no Egypt. It gave water, food, and life, a ribbon of green in a sea of gold. Each year, the Nile flooded its banks, leaving behind rich, dark soil. It turned desert into farmland and farming into empire. Civilization rose where the water met the land. Early Egyptians built huts from reeds and mud, sowing seeds into the marshy banks. They hunted, fished, and slowly learned to tame the rhythm of the river. But Egypt wasn't one kingdom yet, it was 2. Upper Egypt lay to the south, stretching toward Aswan. Lower Egypt was in the north, where the Nile spread into the fertile delta. 2 lands, 2 crowns, 2 powers. Around 3100 BCE, a ruler named Nama, or perhaps Menes, united them. He wore the double crown, white for Upper Egypt, red for Lower. From then on, the pharaoh was called Lord of the 2 lands. This was the beginning of the dynasties. But before this came the shadowy age we call pre-dynastic Egypt, a time before writing, before pyramids, before history had a name. From around 6000 BCE, nomadic tribes settled near the Nile. They formed small communities, growing crops and raising animals. They built homes from reeds and mud, and carved tools from bone and stone. Cultures like Badarian, Amratian, and Gurzian emerged. They made pottery, crafted jewelry, and buried their dead with care. Kings had not yet risen, but leaders were already forming. In the Fayoum oasis, people fished in ancient lakes and stored food in underground silos. They domesticated goats and cattle. This was a world learning to plan, to build, to dream. Villages grew, tribes merged. People began to live not just beside the river, but with it. They shaped the land and were shaped by it. Trade routes opened, and new ideas flowed like the Nile itself. Simple huts became complex homes with courtyards and hearths. Burials grew elaborate, hinting at a belief in life after death. At Abydos, tombs were built for important figures. They were made of mud brick, and later of limestone. This city would one day become a royal necropolis. The first hieroglyphs appeared around 3300 BCE. At first, just symbols on pottery and ivory tags. But soon, they would become a full writing system, the voice of Egypt. By 3200 BCE, Egypt was on the verge of transformation. City-states in Upper Egypt clashed for dominance. The most powerful among them would shape the future. One of these cities was Thinis. Its rulers, perhaps men like Scorpioni or Ka, fought to unify the land. And in the end, one did. King Nama, his name carved in ancient slate, brought together Upper and Lower Egypt. He built a capital, started a dynasty, and became the first pharaoh. History had begun. This early dynastic period laid the foundation for everything to come. Writing, administration, religion, all took root here, and the Nile kept flowing. The pharaohs were seen not just as kings, but gods on earth. They ruled with divine authority and infinite legacy. Their tombs would not be simple graves, but monuments to eternity. To understand the Egyptians, you must understand their view of death. It wasn't an end, It was a continuation. The tomb was not a prison, but a gateway to the afterlife. They believed the soul had many parts. The Ka, a person's life force. The Ba, a spiritual essence that could travel. And the Ok, the shining, immortal self. For the soul to survive, the body had to be preserved. Thus began the art of mummification, a ritual as sacred as prayer and just as precise. Organs were removed and stored in canopic jars. The body was dried in natron for 40 days, then wrapped in linen. Amulets were placed inside the wrappings for protection. Death was only the beginning. The soul had to journey through the underworld, facing trials and gods. The heart was weighed against the feather of mat truth. If your heart was heavy with sin, it was devoured by a beast. If it was light, you lived forever in paradise. Egyptian religion was poetic and terrifying. The tomb was the soul's eternal home. It was filled with food, tools, statues, and prayers. Even small figurines, called shabti, were placed to serve the dead in the afterlife. At first, tombs were simple pits. Then they became mastabas, rectangular structures made of mud brick. Later, they would rise into the sky. Around 2700 BCE, a genius appeared, Imhotep, architect, priest, physician, and later, a god. He served Djoser, a pharaoh of the 3rd dynasty. Imhotep designed something the world had never seen, a pyramid, but not the smooth-sided giants we know. This one had steps. The step pyramid of Saqqara rose 200 feet above the desert. It was made of stone, not mud brick, a symbol of power, eternity, and engineering brilliance. This marked the dawn of the Old Kingdom, a time when pharaohs ruled as divine beings. Their word was law, their legacy eternal. The 4th dynasty brought new ambition. Pharaoh Sneferu built not 1, but 3 pyramids. He perfected the smooth-sided design. His son, Khufu, went even bigger. On the Giza Plateau, he built the Great Pyramid, the last surviving wonder of the ancient world. It stood over 480 feet tall, built from over 2 million blocks of stone. No modern machines, no steel, just manpower, mathematics, and vision. A tomb to outlast time itself. Beside it, Kafir built his own pyramid, and the mysterious Sphinx. Its face may be his, its purpose still debated. Part guardian, part riddle. Menkaure followed, building a smaller pyramid. Together, the 3 formed a sacred triangle in the desert, aligned with stars, measured with the heavens. Giza became a city of the dead, filled with temples, workshops, and priestly rituals. Life continued, even in service of the afterlife. But not all pyramids stood the test of time. Many collapsed, eroded, or were looted. Yet their spirit remains etched in history and sand. The Old Kingdom was more than pyramids. It was order, stability, and centralized power. The pharaoh was a god on earth, and Egypt obeyed. Art flourished. Wall paintings showed farmers, dancers, and hunters, scenes of daily life, frozen in eternal color. Scribes recorded grain tallies, prayers, and royal decrees. Their hieroglyphs, carved with care, still speak to us today. Writing made memory permanent. Temples rose along the Nile, each one a gateway between the mortal and divine. Priests tended statues like living beings, feeding, clothing, and singing to them. Gods were everywhere. Ra, the sun god, sailing the sky each day. Osiris, lord of the dead. Isis, the mother. Horus, the falcon. Religion, governance, and life were one. The pharaoh wasn't just king, he was the link between humans and gods. His presence ensured balance, Matt. But even Golden Age's end, over time, regional governors, called nomarchs, gained power. They began to act like kings themselves. Droughts came. The Nile failed to flood. Without food, the people suffered. Faith in the pharaoh began to falter.
The Old Kingdom collapsait. A period of chaos followed the first intermed period. Egypte fractue into rival province.
For over a century, unity was lost. No great pyramids rose. No divine pharaoh ruled. But the story of Egypt was far from over. In time, new rulers emerged from Thebes in the south. They claimed divine right and reunified the land. A new kingdom dawned, and with it, rebirth. The Middle Kingdom rose like the Nile after drought. Rulers from Thebes restored order, rebuilt temples, and revived belief in Maat. Egypt was whole again. Pharaoh Mentuhotep II reunified the country around 2050 BCE. He reasserted divine kingship, but ruled with wisdom, not fear. A new capital formed in the south. Art and literature flourished once more. Tales like the shipwrecked sailor and the story of Sinai revealed a deeper emotional world. The Egyptian soul had found its voice. Pharaohs of the 12th dynasty were brilliant administrators. They expanded irrigation canals, mined turquoise, and secured trade. Egypt grew wealthier and more stable. Amenhotep the first moved the capital north to Ichtai, closer to the heart of Egypt. His son, Senusret I, continued his vision. They ruled as partners, father and son, in sacred harmony. But borders were never safe. Egypt's eastern frontier was vulnerable. Foreign tribes, known as the Asiatics, began to settle in the delta. For a time, the pharaohs held control, but slowly, power shifted, and by 1700 BCE, Egypt once again slipped into division. This was the Second Intermediate Period, a time of fragmentation, foreign influence, and rising danger, and with it came new rulers. The Hyksos were not Egyptian. They came from the Levant, bringing horses, chariots, and new weapons. They took Avaris and ruled the north. But they didn't destroy Egypt. They adapted its customs, wrote in hieroglyphs, and called themselves kings. Still, to the Egyptians, they were invaders. In the south, native rulers of Thebes refused to bow. They prepared for war, sharpening blades and gathering allies. One day, Egypt would rise again. Pharaoh Seqenin Dao died in battle, his skull crushed in combat. His son Komos pushed the Hyksos north, but it was Amos who would finish the war. Amosai, founder of the 18th dynasty, reclaimed Avaris and expelled the Hyksos. Egypt was free and reborn. This was the dawn of the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom was Egypt's golden age. Its borders expanded. Its temples soared. Its pharaohs were warriors, builders, and gods. Amos rebuilt cities, reopened trade routes, and reasserted divine rule. He laid the foundation for greatness, and Egypt stepped into empire. His successors continued to expand. Thutmose I reached the Euphrates River. Thutmose III, the Napoleon of Egypt, led 17 campaigns and never lost a battle. Thutmose III was more than a warrior. He was a tactician, a builder, and a man of culture. He filled Karnak with obelisks and temples. But between them came a woman, Hatshepsut. She ruled not as queen, but as pharaoh, wearing the beard, wielding the crook, commanding like any king. Hatshepsut's reign was peaceful and prosperous. She sent ships to punt a land of incense, myrrh, and gold. Her temple at Deir el-Bahari still stands, carved into the cliffs. She was nearly erased from history. Her images defaced, her name scratched from walls. But stone remembers, and so do we. Egypt was now an empire. It stretched from Nubia in the south to Syria in the north. Tribute flowed into Thebes. Religion remained central. Amen, the hidden one, became the chief deity. His temple at Karnak grew into a city of gods. Pharaohs built monuments, not just for the dead, but for the divine. Their legacies were carved in granite, gilded in gold, each stone a message to eternity. Among the greatest of these builders was Amenhotep III. He ruled at the height of Egypt's wealth and influence. His palace at Malkata was vast, his statues colossal. He was known as the dazzling sun disk, but his son would turn that title into a revolution of faith. Akhenaten, born as Amenhotep IV, rejected the gods of Egypt. He worshipped only Aten, the sun disk. He closed temples, erased Amen's name, and moved the capital. In Akhetaten, today's Amarna, he built a new city from scratch. Art changed. People were shown in motion, with emotion. It was a new vision, and a brief one. Akhenaten ruled for 17 years. When he died, Egypt rushed to restore the old ways. His son, a boy named Tutankhaten, took the throne. The boy king changed his name to Tutankhamun. He reopened the temples, returned to Thebes, and honored Amen. His reign was short, but his tomb would echo forever. In 1922, Howard Carter opened the tomb of Tutankhamun. Inside lay treasures untouched for over 3,000 years. The boy pharaoh had become immortal. Ramses II, Ramses the Great, was Egypt's most celebrated pharaoh. He reigned for 66 years, fathered over 100 children, and left monuments across the land. He called himself a god and lived like one. His greatest test came at the Battle of Kadesh. Facing the Hittite Empire, Ramses led thousands into battle by the Orontes River. It was one of the largest chariot battles in history. He claimed victory, though the truth was more complex. The battle ended in stalemate. But Ramses' scribes told the world he stood alone, fearless, surrounded, and victorious. He signed one of the earliest known peace treaties. It was written in 2 languages, Egyptian and Hittite, a rare moment of diplomacy in an age of war. Ramses built more than he conquered. Abu Simbel, Luxor, Ramesseum, his name carved into every temple. He ensured that history would never forget him. When he died, Egypt mourned. He was buried in the Valley of the Kings, where the desert guards the dead. But his memory had become legend. After Ramses, Egypt entered a slow decline. Successors lacked strength. Foreign powers gained influence. The twilight of the new kingdom had begun. Libyans, Nubians, and eventually Persians ruled the Nile. Yet the temples stood, the traditions endured. Egypt did not vanish, it transformed. In 332 BCE, Alexander the Great entered Egypt. The people welcomed him as a liberator. He founded Alexandria, a city of marble and knowledge. After his death, Egypt passed to the Ptolemies, Greek kings who wore the crowns of the pharaohs. They spoke Greek but ruled like Egyptians. The most famous of them was Cleopatra VII, a queen of charm, intelligence, and political brilliance. She held Rome in the palm of her hand. Her liaisons with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony shaped empires. But when Octavian defeated Antony, she chose death over surrender. With her, the last breath of ancient Egypt faded. In 30 BCE, Egypt became a province of Rome. The temples fell silent, the language disappeared, but the soul of Egypt remained. For centuries, its secrets slept in stone, hieroglyphs unread, names forgotten, but the sand preserved what time could not destroy. In 1799, the Rosetta Stone was found. In 1822, Jean-Francois Champollion cracked the code. The gods and kings of Egypt spoke once more. Modern archaeology unearthed temples, tombs, and treasures. From the Sphinx to the scrolls of the dead, the past came alive, and the world listened in awe. Ancient Egypt was not just pyramids and gold. It was a civilization of engineers, poets, astronomers, and dreamers. They mapped the stars and mapped the soul. They built for eternity. They believed in balance, in Mat. They saw life and death as one eternal river. Every temple told a story. Every tomb held a prayer. And every stone whispered the name of the pharaoh who placed it. They gave us paper, calendars, and cosmetics. They studied medicine and mathematics. They built wonders without machines. Egypt influenced Greece. Greece influenced Rome. And through Rome, Egypt influenced the world. Its legacy runs through the veins of civilization. It was born from the Nile, ruled by the sun, and buried in sand. But it never truly died. It only waited to be remembered. Today, we walk through museums and see their faces carved in stone, painted on walls. We read their stories in glyphs, once silent. We still wonder how they did it all. How did they lift the stones, align the pyramids, predict the floods? Perhaps that is Egypt's greatest gift, mystery. It gives us questions as much as answers, and invites us to imagine. Its history is not a straight line, but a spiral. Cycles of glory, decline, and rebirth. A civilization that lasted 3,000 years. It endured longer than any empire before or since. Its kings became gods. Its gods became symbols. From Nama to Cleopatra, from the first pyramid to the last scroll, Egypt's story is a mirror of human ambition and wonder, a story we still tell. The Nile still flows, the desert still keeps its secrets, and Egypt, ancient, eternal, still speaks. We don't just study Egypt, we search for it. Each excavation uncovers more than artifacts. It reveals humanity. Every tomb, every amulet is a voice from the past. The Valley of the Kings still holds mysteries. Unmarked tombs, sealed chambers, unexplored corridors. The desert may be silent, but it is not empty. DNA tests link pharaohs across generations. CT scans let us see their faces, their wounds, their lives. Science meets mythology, and both tell stories. We now know Tutankhamun was frail, possibly in pain. Yet he ruled, was mourned, and buried like a god. A boy in life, a legend in death. The temples of Karnak and Luxor remain spiritual giants. Tourists walk where priests once chanted. Their shadows stretch across time. Abu Simbel was moved stone by stone in the 1960s to save it from flooding. An ancient temple saved by modern engineering. A collaboration across eras. The Great Pyramid still baffles architects. Its base is nearly perfectly square. Its alignment nearly flawless, even by today's standards. Its purpose was spiritual, not just structural. To raise the soul toward the heavens. To declare the divine power of the king. Hieroglyphs are no longer unreadable symbols. They are poetry, prophecy, and record-keeping. They tell us how Egyptians lived, loved, and died. We find letters, tax documents, school tablets, even graffiti scratched by workers near the pyramids. They remind us these were real people. People who built greatness not from magic, but from knowledge. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, all advanced by Egyptian minds. They measured time, charted stars, healed wounds. The first medical textbooks came from Egypt. They listed injuries, symptoms, and remedies. Even magic had method. Women could own land, divorce, and rule as pharaohs. Few ancient civilizations gave such rights. Egypt was complex and often ahead of its time. The Nile was more than water. It was a calendar, a god, a lifeline. Its rhythm shaped the rhythm of life. Even their gods were reflections of balance. Anubis, guardian of the dead. Thoth, the scribe. Bastet, the protector. Sekhmet, the destroyer. The Egyptian worldview was circular. Life flowed into death, and death back into life. The tomb was not goodbye, it was transformation. Their art followed strict proportions, every figure measured, every pose intentional. But within the rules, there was soul. Eyes wide, hands offering, legs in motion. Even in stillness, Egyptian art moves. It speaks through color, symmetry, and silence. To walk through an ancient tomb is to walk through memory. Paintings cling to walls, like dreams refusing to fade. Even in ruin, Egypt radiates beauty. Modern Egypt still echoes with the ancient Arabic, now flows where hieroglyphs once danced. But the pyramids remain, watching, waiting. Cairo's skyline is crowned by the Giza Plateau, past and present side by side. A city living in two worlds. New generations study their ancestors with pride, preserving heritage while imagining the future. Egypt is not just history, it is identity. In classrooms, museums, and films, Egypt fascinates. It sparks wonder in children, scholars, and dreamers. It whispers, there is more to discover. Each grain of sand may cover a statue. Each hill may hide a temple. We've only just begun to understand it all. What they built has outlived empires, wars, and time itself, because they built with belief, not just bricks. They believed in legacy, and that belief made them eternal. Their names, once buried, are spoken again. Their faces, once hidden, are seen again. Egypt gave the world more than monuments. It gave us imagination, the courage to build something that outlives us. When we look at a pyramid, we don't just see stone. We see ambition, vision, faith. Proof that the human spirit can shape mountains. And though the dynasties have ended, the story has not. Because Egypt is not just a past, it is a question that still invites answers. This was the history of ancient Egypt. A story carved in stone, whispered by sand, and remembered by us, not forgotten, not lost, just timeless.